Welcome back, everyone. This will be my Doctor Strange 2 video for Iron Man, the Illuminati, some of the deleted scenes, and members of the team that they had tried to include previously. So if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. There are so many things that we need to talk about, and I'm still doing the giveaway for IMAX tickets for the movie. All you have to do to enter is just be a subscriber and post all your theories about them introducing those teams from the Illuminati in the future of the MCU. Everybody cannot wait for more Fantastic Four, more X-Men, more Inhumans. Everybody asking lots of questions about the Inhumans. Finally, they answered it. That was one of the big surprises of the film. But during the movie, they introduced a version of Marvel's Illuminati from an alternate universe 838. The number designation 838 isn't meant to be a direct reference to the actual Illuminati team in the comics, but the writer, Kevin Feige, talked about the entire team, and this just part of the movie in general, explaining how they used the team itself and what they changed, the roster that they changed, when they brought on the new writer, the new director, Sam Raimi himself, to do the movie, because originally the team was always going to be part of the film, but in the original version of the movie, they had a different roster and they used the team in a very different way. So during the final version of the movie we saw in theaters, the Illuminati's home base is basically their universe's version of Professor X's X mansion from the comics, so it's inside Central Park. The world had been turned into this utopia after the events of their version of Avengers Infinity War because of what the Illuminati team did differently from our MCU version of the Avengers. For the most part, the vibe of the team and the way they operate, the big things that they do, the hard choices that they make are similar to the comic book version, but the roster is different from the comic book roster. The version of the team that we actually see in the movie is John Krasinski's Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. He's married to a version of Sue Storm. In recent interviews, they actually legit make it sound like Emily Blunt is their version of Sue Storm in this universe. He has both children from the comics, Franklin Richards, Valeria Richards. Franklin Richards is like the most powerful human character that Marvel has ever introduced, next to really big cosmic concepts. They have Patrick Stewart, Professor X, coming back, who's playing a version very similar to the one from X-Men the Animated Series. All the major X-Men, the mutants exist in this universe, like Wolverine, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm. Because they're going with an X-Men the Animated Series vibe, you also have to assume that they all wear very comic booky 80s, 90s looking costumes too. Like the version of the Wolverine costume that's meant to be comic book accurate from that deleted scene in the Wolverine movie. They have a version of Anson Mount's Black Bolt of the Inhumans, who's playing a different version than the one he played on the TV show, but in this universe, Inhumans, the Cherish and Miss, are commonplace. They have a Maria Rambeau Captain Marvel variant. She's Monica Rambeau's mother. She was also a test pilot. She was Carol Danvers' best friend. She just happened to be the test pilot on the day that they were testing that Tesseract ship, so she's the one that got in the accident. She's the one that got the powers. Haley Atwell, Captain Carter, who's playing a different version than the one from What If, but exact same backstory. Baron Mordo of their universe has become Sorcerer Supreme, replacing their Doctor Strange on the team when they killed him during their version of Infinity War, which happened after they used the Book of the Vishanti to kill their Thanos, preventing him from snapping their Infinity Gauntlet. So in their universe, they never had a snap, never had a 5-year time jump, and they just lied to the world to make them think that their Doctor Strange died a hero instead of being corrupted by their version of the Darkhold. So everybody was wondering what was going on with that 6th empty chair. Like there were 7 spaces, but there was a space for Professor X's chair, which means that the empty chair belonged to a completely different member. And they basically confirmed our theories that it was a version of Iron Man, but there was a big question about who was going to be playing that version of Iron Man, and that was what they were talking about mostly, like what their original plan was for the character and what changed about that. They answered a lot of big rumors that have been going around the past year too. We had all those Ultron robot variants of the Iron Legion that were a huge plot point during all these scenes. You may have heard them verbally reference the Ultron Protocol. The voice of the robots themselves was actually Ross Marquand, who played their version of Red Skull during Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, and then again during What If. They were meant to be upgrades of this version of Iron Man's Iron Legion in this universe. So for example, another big thing that was different in this universe is that they didn't have their version of Avengers Age of Ultron because their Iron Man was able to control their Ultron technology when they found their version of the Mind Stone. So if they had a version of Iron Man in this universe, where is he? What happened to him? Why is this empty chair here? I saw a few comments of people wondering whether or not the Ultron robots came from another character like Hank Pym, because in the comics, Hank Pym is the person who created Ultron. It wasn't Tony Stark. They changed that for the movies. People wondering if maybe Reed Richards changed them because he's the smartest man alive. He'd have the ability to do something like that. And they basically said that that was never a thing. Like it wasn't their version of Hank Pym or Reed Richards or anything like that. It was all meant to be very Iron Man specific kind of stuff on the team in general. So their Iron Man did create these robots. Their writer says that they always wanted to include a version of Iron Man in some way, but when he came on board and they were writing a new version of the movie, one of the changes that he made initially was to legit get Tom Cruise Iron Man in a cameo scene. So if you saw any kind of rumors about Tom Cruise playing a version of Iron Man earlier this year or last year, that's where those rumors probably came from. Legit, they actually tried to make it happen. The reason why that's meant to be a big Easter egg for the origin of the Iron Man character of the MCU is that originally there was a version of the Iron Man movie that they tried to make with Tom Cruise before Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau came onto the project. Obviously, I think they made the right call, like it was correct for Tom Cruise to turn down the role. Now anytime you mention the Iron Man name, you can't help but think of Robert Downey Jr., so it would be really weird to see another actor playing that role. But the main reason why you didn't see Tom Cruise doing a cameo scene in the movie, because he's known for doing really weird one-off cameo scenes like, what is he doing in this movie? Why is he doing this cameo? It just turns out he does stuff like that. The main reason why it didn't work out in this movie is mostly because of the virus, because they were filming this movie during the virus. It caused a bunch of scheduling conflicts, and Tom Cruise was mostly stuck filming his Mission Impossible movies during the pandemic. So if you want to blame anything for them not being able to get a Tom Cruise cameo, blame the virus, which I think is probably the best way to go. It wasn't about him never wanting to be in a Marvel movie or anything like that. He probably would have actually done it had it not been for the scheduling conflicts. Then after that wound up falling through during the process of them making the movie, they just decided to leave their version of Iron Man in this universe up in the air, like not directly address him just to make people wonder, because they were already introducing so many twists with all the new Fantastic Four, the X-Men, the Inhuman stuff. So yes, Iron Man was a part of the movie, but that's why you don't actually see him on screen. Like his presence is meant to be felt through the Ultron robots and through a lot of what's going on here. Theoretically, he's still alive in this universe, and they just kind of use their hand-wavy logic to explain why he doesn't happen to be sitting here with the rest of the team when all the events of the movie go down. I also think behind the scenes, when this started to happen, they just decided that if they were going to do a legit version of Iron Man variant on screen, they just eventually decided to wait until actual Secret Wars takes place to bring Robert Downey Jr. back in different forms. Like, they'll continue to reference MCU Iron Man in different ways through the different projects. Like, Iron Man's Armor War series is happening in the next year or two. They're going to have to reference a lot of Iron Man MCU stuff during that. The whole plot hinges on another villain stealing Iron Man's technology.
A classic Marvel story about Tony Stark's worst fear coming true. It's what happens when his tech falls into the wrong hands.
So I think when we get through our Time Runs Out movie, then we get to our actual Secret Wars movie, then they'll bring back live-action Robert Downey Jr. in some form. I also think they'll eventually try to pay off that big Sorcerer Supreme Tony Stark twist from Avengers Infinity War in that deleted scene. This is legit footage that they shot, just turned into a deleted scene. They just never released it online before. I've already done a bunch of videos about this Avengers Infinity War deleted scene, so I'll post links in the description. Iron Man becoming a version of Sorcerer Supreme, and Doctor Strange becoming a version of Iron Man wearing the armor. He was called the Iron Mage when he wore Iron Man's armor. What the writer said, though, is that one of the other big things that he changed with the actual team when they were trying to decide who was going to be on the team, what they were going to do with them during the movie, is that the stuff that they did with them in this draft was way crazier than what they were doing in the original draft of the movie. It sounds like when he came onto the film, he had all this plot with them trying to stop Wanda and her killing them. Like, originally, they were a much smaller part of the film, and they didn't all wind up dying so quickly. So I think in the original version, they probably did not have Anson Mount Black Bolt or the Maria Rambeau Captain Marvel variant. The writer also said that they're using the same type of pacing now in Marvel Phase 4 with the Incursions and Secret Wars that they used with Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet, the Infinity Gems during Marvel Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. Like, they introduced the multiverse in a big way as a big trope during Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, then they tease the Incursions, then they do Time Runs Out, then they do Secret Wars. The same way that you tease space in the first Thor movie, then you tease space coming to them with the Chitauri invasion, the first Avengers movie, and then by the time you get to Avengers Infinity War, you have actual Thanos coming for them with the Infinity Gauntlet. So just based on that pacing, it seems like there's going to be a Time Runs Out Avengers-style movie, like a big crossover film. If it's not Avengers, they'll call it something else. Like that would be Avengers 5, where they all work together to stop the Incursions in a big way, but fail to do so, and things get worse and worse and worse until there's only the fragments of a couple universes left. Then they combine them, and in the next big crossover movie, Avengers 6, or whatever they wind up calling it, that winds up being the Secret Wars film. The Russos themselves actually even said that they would probably be doing something like this way back when Infinity War happened. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? The writer was Michael Waldron. He's the person who created the Loki TV series. He did all the TVA stuff. I know there's a lot of questions about why the TVA didn't get totally involved in the plot of the film. He explained that too. I'll talk about it in a separate video because it's a completely separate thing. He also had a cameo scene in the movie as the best man at MCU Christine Palmer's wedding, if you don't remember. I've got a bunch more Doctor Strange 2 videos planned. I'll talk about some of the really big twists in the movie over the next couple of days. So if you have any big questions or requests, just write them in the comments below. I'll name a giveaway winner in my next big Marvel video. Everyone click here for my full Doctor Strange 2 breakdown, Easter eggs for the entire movie, and click here for my Doctor Strange 2 post-credit scene video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.